Welcome back. So good to have you with us again. Today we're going to think about the leader's inner circle, those who are closest to him, around the area of accountability. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verses 9 to 10 says this. I'll read it for you. It says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up." Here are three questions for you to think about when you think about your inner circle. What was the last thing God had said to you? When was the last time a friend challenged you? And when was the last time you were tempted? You see, sadly, Christian leaders do fail. They do fall into immorality or are tempted by sin and go the wrong way. Now, fortunately, the majority of Christian leaders seem to navigate life perfectly well. But those who fail reflect badly on the rest of us. All we hear about in the news is what they've done, their corruption, their sin, whatever it is. We need to be leaders, as Christian leaders, who are accountable, who are making sure that we've got people around us to hold us accountable, to make sure that we walk the road properly. Research has been undertaken into leaders who have failed over the years, and three common areas have come out concerning leaders who don't make it, who fail, who wander off, who give in to temptation. Here are the three common traits. Firstly, they stop spending time with God each day. If you're not spending time with the one who called you, eventually his voice will seem distant. Secondly, they had no accountability partner in their life. They had no one asking them the tough questions. And thirdly, they thought that that kind of failure would never happen to them. I've been saddened recently to read a report about a very well-known Christian leader who passed away recently, and it turns out that for years, through traveling alone, having no accountability as he traveled the world, that he became emotionally entangled with women. He developed relationships with them. He went as far as abusing some of those women as well. This has all come out after his death, so much so that the organization that he founded has now distanced themselves from him. What a tragedy for the victims, for those women who have been caught up in this, and for the reputation of Christian leaders around the world. And ultimately for his wife as well, who had been married to him for decades and decades and decades and had no idea what was going on. That is not the legacy of a great leader. It's a sadness. It's a scar on the church. So we need to make sure that we are walking uprightly and properly. There are several things that we need around us to enable that to happen as Christian leaders. We need God as our Heavenly Father. We need to make sure that we're in a great father-child relationship with Him. We need family around us, a wife if we have one, or a husband if we are married people, and your children if you have them. Make sure that you're close in relationship with them. If you are traveling as a Christian leader, make sure wherever possible your spouse is traveling with you. We need a mentor. We need someone who is like a Paul in our life, someone who is further down the road than us. We need a Barnabas, someone who is an encourager alongside us, holding us accountable. And we need a Timothy, someone who is an apprentice, who we are modeling for constantly. I've spoken about mentoring extensively in these videos. I was once asked to go back to the theological college where I had trained and deliver a message to the current student body. And I spoke about this subject on accountability. I spoke about the need to have people around us. And one of the things I suggested to them is that, because they were all living in a community, is that they form accountability groups, that they set a time aside to ask each other tough and difficult questions. And I gave them 5 questions, and I said, here are things to ask each other There are simple ground rules that whatever happens within your accountability group, your friendship circle, stays within that friendship circle. It's entirely confidential. I've said to them, question 1 is non-negotiable, and the last question, question 5, is non-negotiable. But the other 3 questions you can adapt depending on your group. And finally, in that group, they must be of the same sex. We don't, when we talk about and to have freedom in subjects and areas and to feel safe, we do not mix genders when we're doing these accountability sessions with each other. So here are the 5 questions or the 5 areas I asked them to look at, and these are great areas for you to look at as well in your life. They're still areas that I am held accountable for in my life. Firstly, we looked at the area of self. How are you spiritually, emotionally, and physically? That's a non-negotiable. The second question was about marriage or your relationship. How is the relationship with your spouse or your significant close relationships? What are the positives and negatives? The third area was family. How are your relationships with your children if you have them, or with your parents if they're still alive? What's negative, what's positive about that? Fourthly, money. How are your finances doing? What are the stress points? What are the positives? And the final question, remember, number 1 and number 5 is non-negotiable, was truth. The final question is this: have you just been lying to me? Now, those are tough questions. I have people in my life who can ask me those questions and make sure that I'm still walking properly. So I delivered that talk to the students and I left, and several months later at a regional airport, I actually met one of the students. He came up and spoke to me and he says, "You're the guy that came and gave us that talk on accountability. I want to tell you what happened." And he told me this story. He said that he was sharing a accommodation with 5 male students. They went back after the talk and they began to talk about what I'd said, and they said, "Let's do it now. Let's sit down in a circle and let's just go through those 5 areas together." But there was a problem. One of the students had his non-Christian brother visiting him, and so they were a bit wary. Do we do this or not? What do we do with him for the next half hour or so? But he said, "Can I sit in? Can I listen? Can I be part of it? I promise not to share anything." So they agreed. Well, it transpired that by the end of the session, this young man gave his life to Jesus. And I heard that and I was thrilled. I was like, this is amazing. But I said to the person relaying the story to me, I said, well, that wasn't really evangelistic. It was to do with holding each other's hands up. It was to do with strengthening one another, to holding each other accountable. And he said to me, it was the love. That young guy had never seen a group of men be so honest with each other and love each other enough to break through what was superficial. He saw Christ's love for the first time. Accountability is another word for loving one another. God bless you as you seek to find partners in your life and people in your life who will ask you the tough questions to make sure that you are accountable for your life and ministry.